Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Thank you, John. Ay. What an ugly freaking mess. City of Ottawa declares an emergency. Protesters are still here. Ontario declares a state of emergency. Protesters are still here. The Prime Minister declares a state of emergency. Protesters are still here. Do you realize, ladies and gentlemen, that the City of Ottawa, those of us who live in the City of Ottawa, are now living under 4 separate states of emergencies? Wait a minute, you say. Wait a minute, 4? Yeah. Late last year, City of Ottawa declared that global warming was an emergency. Woohoo! And then we had the City of Ottawa declared that the convoy was an emergency. And then the province declared that the whole damn thing was an emergency. And now the Prime Minister says the whole damn country is an emergency. So those of us in Ottawa were living under 4 freaking emergencies. And guess what? The convoy is still there. Police chief resigns. Bank accounts going to be frozen. Truck insurance canceled. Anti-protest protests break out. The great Battle of Billings Bridge. But the protests with their bouncy castles and their saunas are still there. It's crazy. Nuts. Banana Republic stuff. We're the laughing stock of that segment of the world which still has reasonably sane administration. So you say, what's it all about? What started this? Because memories are short, right? What prompted this? Well, think back. What's it all about? At least what started it was a Trudeau ruling that all truck drivers crossing the border from the United States into Canada had to be vaccinated. There had to be a vaccine mandate passport, even though only about 10% of the truckers are not vaccinated. And for the past 2 years, vaccinated or unvaccinated, they have been supplying the shelves of grocery stores, auto parts, etc., with nary a problem. For 2 years, they were the bulwark, kept us going. But suddenly, when things began to ease off, Trudeau says, no, you all got to be vaccinated. So all hell breaks loose. Whether it's justified or not, it's not the issue. That's what started it. I mean, the Omicron virus is already well established in Canada. And it made absolutely no sense to think that international truckers, somehow or other, were bringing this virus into the country. The virus is already here in considerable numbers, if you recall. There's no data, no scientific evidence whatsoever that truckers were responsible for spreading this at all. In fact, probably just the opposite. I mean, most international truckers, they're pretty well stuck in their cab. And, I won't, but whatever it is, whether you think it was justified or not, that's what started it, okay? Trudeau declared that the truckers had to have vaccine passports. All hell breaks loose. Doesn't matter whether you agree, disagree, somewhere on the fence. That's what happened, which means, among other things, that all of this could be resolved today, tomorrow, with a simple stroke of a pen. Simply tell the truckers that the idea of all of them having to be vaccinated is being scrapped. I mean, vaccine passports, mandates are being scrapped for almost everybody else. Why not truckers? Get it over with. If Trudeau announced today that the vaccine passports would no longer be required, then the truckers would go home. It'd be over. Done with. Problem solved. I mean, if Trudeau just announced that as of March 1st, those crazy PCR tests will no longer be required for vaccinated Canadians returning from the United States, why not at the same time make a small concession say, you know what, only 10% of you truckers not vaccinated. Let's forget about it. For 2 years, we weren't concerned for 2 years during the height of this thing. So let's just forget about it. But you can be sure there's no freaking way that Trudeau's going to do anything of the sort. Not because this would be the common sense thing to do. Not because the data, the science shows that truckers are not a COVID problem, never have been. Not because he could get this whole mess over with a simple stroke of a pen or a simple announcement, and we could all get back to some sort of normal life. No. Our prime minister will not do the common sense thing. He will not do what's right. He will not exercise any common decency. He won't end this ugly mess. No. You know why? Because his ego won't allow it. I mean, let's be honest. Trudeau has called the truckers virtually every name in the book. And the truckers have responded with a lot of disdain and a few names of their own. Poke fun at him. And the Trudeau ego simply cannot handle that. Thus it is that this thing is going to continue. And this, you can poke fun. But I fear that this thing is going to now end in violence. It should be obvious to us all by now that some of those truckers, not them all, but some of those people, some of them won't even be truckers, will not leave unless they are forced to do so. And when force is applied, you never know what's going to happen. So far, it's been peaceful, few minor incidents, but I fear that I hope that I'm wrong. I hope to God that I am wrong. But when force is applied to an immovable force, you never know what's going to happen. All Trudeau has got to do is say, listen, this thing, COVID, is in real recession now. Many of the provinces are scrapping all vaccine mandates, et cetera, opening things up. We're going to do the same thing with the truckers. And it would be over. But it ain't going to happen. The Trudeau ego simply will not allow it. Now, here's the next question. One of the things that I think that you've got to understand is essentially until now, Trudeau has been able to in his slippery clam-like fashion, shoved off responsibility to the province, to the city, to the police chief, all the rest of it. But now Trudeau has assumed responsibility. This is his problem now. So if he doesn't solve it, well, maybe a few voters in this province, in this country, may wise up. I don't know. But it's very interesting. This is now, he owns this. He wears this now, okay? Let's see what happens. I hope to God there's no violence. And you know what? If he were a decent man, a thinking man, a man with common sense, and really, really cared about the country, wanted to stop the divisiveness, the growing anger, the growing hate, if he really, 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 really wanted to stop it, all he's got to do is say, in fact, he might even say, sorry, truckers, made a mistake. We should never have done this. I'm going to scrap the mandate requirement. Now, would you folks please go home? God bless you. Something like that. That'd end it. But he ain't going to do it. So God knows what happens next. Over to you, folks. John, how do people get in touch with me?
All right, we invite your phone calls, and you can text the show at 613-413-2217. You can also follow on Facebook, on Twitch, on Twitter, on YouTube, etc. You post your comments where you'd normally post your comments. They pop up on my screen. I pop up on the screen here, and I read as many as I can. Here's one from Jim. He says, hi, Lowell. I just took $1,000 out of my bank. I'm giving it to the truck protest. Come and get me, Justin. Holy mackerel, man, he says.
Yeah, this is scary. And I'm not sure if this is really sunk in with the truckers, but this is scary. More than 10,000 people, the bulk of them in Canada, apparently some in the United States, but apparently about 10,000 Canadians, in one fashion or another, donated money or something to the truckers. Now, apparently, according to Christy Freeland, Every single one of those people, if their banks think that in any way they support it or they see some checks coming through, whatever it is, and they suspect that this was in support of the convoy, the banks, of their own volition, depending upon the bank manager, can freeze those bank accounts and cause irreparable and perhaps even permanent damage to the credit. Cancel more. Who the hell knows? I don't know if this is one of the provisions of the Emergency Act. This is very draconian, folks. You may support what Trudeau has done. You say, well, he's got to do something. But holy cats. Now, supposing that you're one of those innocent little old lady on Bank Street decides that she's going to give $10 to the convoy, support them through GoFundMe or whatever the hell it was. That means that her banker then, if the bankers, maybe she's come in and boasted about it to the bank, or it come back, if the check came back somehow to the bank manager, he said, oh, she supported the convoy. I can freeze her bank account. I can grab her assets. I have the legal right to do that. Do you know that? Yeah. Trudeau says he's not going to bring in the army, but he's bringing in the banks. And I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to being scared, I'm a hell of a lot more scared of the goddamn banks than I am of the military. John, what have you got?
Oh my gosh, Lowell, I can't even keep up. Here we go. Emergency measures, like father, like son, says Shane. Kevin says 99.9% of Ottawa is not affected by protest on Wellington Street. Spencer says waste of money supporting these truckers when a lot of them are terrorizing the people downtown. Some of them got arrested near Alberta border by RCMP for bringing in weapons.
Fine. Can we deal with the topic here? Okay. Do you support what Trudeau has done? One of my main questions here is, Trudeau has the power to put an end to this. All he's got to do is tell the truckers, look, only 10% of you truckers or thereabouts are not vaccinated. We put up with it for 2 years. We can put up with it now. And he can get it over with. Barring that, there's going to be force involved here. So my question to you then, please address this. Okay, please address this. Should Trudeau scrap the passport mandate for truckers and get this over with? Yes or no? Go ahead, please, John.
Craig says, I do not support his actions. I do not support his overreach, says Satan's Playmate watching on Twitch. Susan says, Freeland said yesterday that Canada's reputation is ruined because of the trucker demonstrations and blockades. I believe Trudeau has done that single-handedly. Rosemary, to answer your question, says yes. Julie says, I find it very scary what Trudeau did. It could have been an easy fix. Shane says, I've lost it. It went to the screen too fast. Pierre Trudeau is speaking from the grave saying, that's my boy. Kathy says, no, Trudeau was in the wrong. He never attempted to sit down with the truckers. Glenn says, I do not support what Trudeau has done. Absolute crap, the mandates, says Caroline. Lisa says, yes, he should scrap the mandates. Yes, scrap it, says Ryan. And the comments continue to flow in. 613-413-2217. Lowell, I'll go back to the top of the comments from earlier. I'm so upset, says Sonia. We are officially now a police state. That the bank can seize the money, family fled communism, and now they are reliving this. Joshua says the freezing of bank accounts is Trudeau once again trying to control people who don't support his ideology. He is a threat to democracy.
This is, let me just jump in here. I did as much research, excuse me, as much research as I could on this. As you know, this Emergency Act has never been applied. It's the revised edition of the War Measures Act that Pierre Trudeau. It's interesting that the War Measures Act and now the Emergency Act, which is a variation of it, only imposed by two people, both of them Trudeaus. So I'm trying to find the power. This idea that banks have this. When you talk about a bank, we're not talking about a huge generic institution here, someplace in Toronto. We're talking about individual bank managers, some of whom are very competent, some of them not very competent. I've dealt with a lot of banks in my life, not always pleasantly, and I'm going to tell you that some bank managers are very good. They know their stuff. Other bank managers, they're almost incapable of adding 2 and 2, to be honest with you. Okay. And as far as having morality, If some of the bank managers don't like somebody, or maybe there's a little bit of a problem with the account, and now they have the right to not only freeze the account, but apparently seize the assets. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I mean, does that mean that the bank has the right to come in and seize your home? I don't know. It's scary. That's the powers of this. Now, my one thing to keep in mind: it does not. This act does not take effect. It's got to be passed by Parliament. But already, of course, the ass-kissing NDP has said they'll support it. Even it's quite astonishing. I mean, you talk about crazy, squirrely stuff. Here is Singh criticizing, saying that Trudeau, excuse me, having to pass this as an indication of failure and so forth. But we'll support it. Only in Canada, okay? Only in Canada. Oh my God. Go ahead, John.
Yes, Scrap It says, Janet. Doug says he should take the famous walk in the snow to the train station, would be appreciated. Terry says, it was a great day when Trudeau took his walk in the snow. My question, when will Justin take his in the quicksand?
Never.
Now,
he's not going to try. Trudeau's not going to resign. I mean, let's face it, but there's still a large segment of the country that loves the guy. Doesn't matter what he does, blackface, scandals, groping. The majority of the people still love the guy, and he knows it.
Well, this is the thing. We just had an election, September? So not even 6 months ago?
That's right.
I mean, he's democratically elected. There's never been any question as to the validity of our election or anything of the sort. And yet here we are. Steve says Freeland's most dangerous words were, if the government suspects, what happened to innocent until proven guilty.
Forget it. I got to get a word in here.
All right.
From Shields. Good folks, I'm going to tell you. Listen, you're talking about good folks with a sense of morality, decency, that know how to do business the right way. They do at Shields. Been operating in the Ottawa Valley and in Ottawa since 1947. Started out by the grandfather, then the father, and now the son, Mark Shield. It's a relatively small store on the main street in the giant metropolis of Pakenham, right next to the five-span bridge, world famous. But they have a huge warehouse. Virtually any kind of appliance that you could possibly want. All of the brand names, colors, sizes, price ranges, etc., all available there for, in all probability, delivery in the next 2 or 3 days. No long delays. Prices very, very competitive. Check them out, folks. Shields, very well known, highly regarded right throughout the Ottawa Valley and increasingly here in Ottawa. More and more people in Ottawa, and in fact, even right down through to Cornwall, Brockville, Prescott, they'll deliver down there as well. Shields.ca. John, back to you.
Isn't everything in Prescott right beside the five-span bridge? I think so.
And Pakenham.
Pakenham, I'm sorry, yeah. Did I say Prescott?
It's our favorite feed store is the five-span feed store. This is where we get all of our bird seed. Go ahead.
Rosemary says the Canadian Civil Liberties Association says it does not believe the high and clear threshold needed to invoke the act has been met. Noting the law states it can only be used when a situation cannot be dealt with using any other law in the country. Executive Director Noah Mendelssohn Aviv warns that normalizing emergency legislation threatens our democracy and our civil liberties.
Yeah, there's a lot to be concerned about. Now, one of the things that the Emergency Act provides that is not provided under other laws is this business of the bank's ability to freeze accounts. That is not covered under other segments of the law. And it seems to me that this is the most draconian of all of pretty well everything else covered in the Emergency Act is covered under normal laws. One of the problems is, I mean, everybody that knows anything says we've always had sufficient laws to deal with this. Much of what has happened in the convoys is illegal, very clearly, and should have been dealt with, but was not. So it's all very well to pass laws, etc. But the problem is you've got to enforce those laws. If the laws are not enforced, then passing them is of no avail whatsoever. Go ahead, John.
We have a ton of texts and a ton of comments coming in on social media. Let's go with Ken. Ken works in the banking industry. He says, Lowell, you are so wrong about the banking powers of managers. They don't have that power. It's the power of anti-money laundering legislation. That's Ken's comment.
No, the bank managers, if the bank manager suspects that you are doing something that's illegal, which would be, then they can freeze your account. Go ahead.
Susan says, remove the mandates for the truckers. Lynn says, Druthers News reported on Facebook this morning that their bank account is frozen. Satan's Playmate, if you give money to a peaceful protest, they will freeze your bank account. But if you give money to an actual terrorist group that riots in cities and burns cop cars, then the PM will take a knee with you.
Well, I keep reminding people that it was Trudeau that gave a convicted terrorist 10 million tax dollars. So
now, okay, but was that it wouldn't have mattered who the prime minister was? Did that decision not come from the Supreme Court?
No, there was never a Supreme Court. No, that was just strictly Trudeau's. That was strictly Trudeau's idea. He gave him $10.1 million.
I owe a lot of people apologies because I've been saying that came from the Supreme Court.
No, never did.
Okay. All right. We've got a phone call coming in, Lowell. I have not had a chance to screen it, but let's go to the phone. Hi, who's this, please?
Lowell, John, it's Ken.
Hi, Ken. You are on with Lowell Green. Go ahead.
Lowell, you need to look up the anti-money laundering legislation. Bank managers have to report if they suspect transactions are being used for this kind of thing. They have to report it up first. They cannot just unilaterally lock up an account or anything else just because they think it is.
Ken,
okay?
Have you read the Emergency Act?
Lowell, I've been working in it for 30 years. I've been in banking for that long.
Ken, I understand that, but have you read the Emergency Act?
I haven't read the Emergency Act. What Freeland said yesterday is that they're using... No, hold on. What they said yesterday
what are you yelling at me, sir?
Is that the Freeland said yesterday that they are using the act to modify the anti-money laundering act. Okay, you are wrong, sir. You are wrong. 100% wrong. Okay. So either you need to get your facts straight or listen to people when they're telling you you're wrong.
I'm listening to you, sir.
Okay. So
but I
they
can
do not
come
have
back
unilateral...
I'm still asking you the question. Have you read the Emergency Act?
No, it was just released yesterday.
Excuse me. How can you tell me I'm wrong if you haven't read the act?
Okay. They were talking about using the act to amend the anti-money laundering act.
Have you read the act?
No, I have not read the act.
Then you do not know what the act says. Read the
No,
act.
I was going by what Freeland said yesterday. And if they're using that act to modify it, then they don't have that power to do that. What you are describing is wrong.
Okay. All right. Okay. But please do me a favor and read the act. And then maybe...
Well, you're going to have to as well because you're wrong. You need to read the Anti-Money Laundering Act, which is the act that's in effect here for banking and stuff.
No, actually, it's the Emergency Act that's in effect. But go ahead, sir.
The Emergency Act is affecting the anti-money laundering.
Ken, are you a bank manager?
No.
Okay. I just wondered.
Does that matter?
No, I just asked the question. Why are you so hostile? I'm not hostile with you.
Because I hate it when I hate people in general, when they don't know about the rules when it comes to banking, that they spout off about stuff. Normally you make sense. Today you're not.
Okay.
Because you don't know the rules when it comes to banking.
Okay.
Okay.
I've read the act and you haven't, so you know, but I don't. Okay, that's fair enough.
Okay. Well, you haven't read the Anti-Money Laundering Act, so I know and you don't.
Okay.
So it looks like you're as big of an idiot as anybody else is.
So I'm an idiot now. This is a really intelligent conversation. Okay, Ken. And until now, I was patient with you, but when people start calling me names, that's over with. Goodbye. Go ahead, John. What else have we got here?
Okay. Ken, not a good call. Chill, they say. Do like on CFRA and hang up on him. Unfortunately, Lowell doesn't have the hang up button. I do, so I got to look for eye contact on that. What a jerk this specimen is who just called Lowell. Obviously a liberal, snotty. Why the anger, man? Okay, so they're ganging up on Ken here. Let's go to questions. Joseph says, what happens, though, when private businesses and organizations impose their own vaccine protocols? What's the precedent we're setting here by giving in on these demands?
I'm not clear what that means, but go ahead, John.
Glenn says the releasing of names of supporters by whomever is already starting. Barbara says, so the little old lady who donates $20 to support the trucker protest is a potential terrorist, so her bank thinks? Doesn't matter if it's your bank or FinTrack. Spencer says he's in the right. Why would he sit down with terrorists? The Criminal Code of Canada defines terrorist activity to include an act or omission undertaken in or outside Canada for a political, religious, or ideological purpose that is intended to intimidate the public with regard to its security, including its economic security, or to compel a person, government, or organization, whether in or outside of Canada,
Okay,
to do
okay,
or
okay,
refrain.
okay.
Um,
You know what? Like, I mean, Ken phones, and because he disagrees with what I'm saying, calls me an idiot. The prime minister disagreed with the truckers and called them terrorists. This texter or whatever it is calls them terrorists. So that means that every trucker then is a terrorist, and all of those thousands of people who supported them are terrorists. That's that's the problem in this country. You can't have a rational debate anymore. You know what? When people disagree, they disagree with me or they disagree with the truckers. They begin calling them names, terrorists and idiots and all that. I mean, that folks, you can't run a democracy in that fact. If you can't have reasonable debates with reasonable people without name calling, you can't have a democracy that works. Go ahead, John.
Let me see. Let's go to text 613-413-2217. Patrick says, Lowell, it has never made sense to me that truckers need to be vaccinated with regards to their work. Trucking is a very solo occupation. I have worked in this industry. The Emergency Act was not required, and provincial authorities do have the power to end this standoff in Ottawa as they did in Windsor. If the Prime Minister had spoken with the protesters in the first couple of days, this could all have been averted. Courage was, not is the key. The opportunity has passed our government by.
Well, here's one of the crazy things is that for most of us in Ontario, and in fact most provinces, very soon the vaccine mandates will all be canceled. You won't have to show your passports or anything anymore, except if you're a trucker. I mean, this is what's behind. This is what started it. Go ahead, John.
Trudeau doesn't know what he does. He just relies on his cabinet ministers to come up with answers, says Carol. Let me see. Democracy is mob rule, says Frank. The thing is, says Spencer, is there is safety measures in numbers. This is causing a cover screen for those that are meaning to do damage. Trudeau needs to get his head out of his ass and suck up his pride. This is crazy. Text Sandy at 613-413-2217.
Now, Trudeau can end it tomorrow. All he's got to do is say, listen, we're canceling vaccine mandates in most jurisdictions in this country. We're going to cancel the vaccine mandate for truckers. And it's over. No violence. Everybody goes home. Go ahead.
613-413-2217. Peter says, how about the Liberal Party replace him or a vote of non-confidence? An email from Lisa at Lowell at blasttheradio.com. Lowell, maybe now with this Emergencies Act in place, the feds can seize assets from money launderers, embezzlement, and Ponzi schemers and the like.
That's a very good point. Apparently, money laundering, particularly in BC, is just wild. Billions of dollars in money laundering. They can't seem to handle that. But apparently, if you just donated $20 to the truckers, you may have your bank account frozen. It's beautiful, beautiful. Go ahead, John.
Joseph is back. He's got a simplified version of the question he asked you earlier. He says, when does freedom of choice supersede freedom of consequence?
Well, the two are inseparable. Go ahead.
Deborah says Trudeau has already sat down with two terrorists, Omar Khadr, and Joshua Boyle. That's the true definition of a terrorist, not a trucker.
Well, I don't know if Boyle was a terrorist. He was certainly different. Go ahead.
Lowell, what's your thought on the trailer load of guns that were stolen from Peterborough? Do you think they'll be used to plant them on the truckers? Asks Valda.
Who knows?
Kathy says the damage that Trudeau can cause now is beyond what most people could possibly understand. And just realizing that Chief Slowly has resigned, she says that's good. Kathy says, you have that right, Lowell. What a mess. I'm not sure what right she's referring to. That was from earlier on. Coraline, I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. Billings Bridge, where they held people hostage and stole the personal possessions. Okay.
No, I don't think that happened. I don't. That's news to me. I support legal protests, and
Sure.
what the anti-protesters did at Billingsbridge, from all reports, was legal. So I support that. Go ahead.
Debbie, I find it quite hilarious that this quote unquote fringe mob, as described by Trudeau, forced him to declare a state of emergency. Shane says JT with all his hub and grandstanding instead of showing diplomacy and initiating a dialogue in order to bring this to a resolution. Mike says, so why does everybody else have to get vaccinated but not the truckers? This makes no sense.
No, well, wait a minute. Everybody doesn't have to be vaccinated. There's never been, nobody has ever been forced to be vaccinated.
True.
So, and I'm just simply saying that we put up with it for 2 years. For 2 years, the truckers brought in all the things that we needed, all our fresh fruits, vegetables, meats, etc., auto parts, all the things that keep this country going. For 2 years, we didn't. And then suddenly, when Omicron begins to slacken off, we decide that we're going to force them all to be vaccinated. Maybe it's necessary. Maybe it was right. But all I'm saying is that this is what prompted it, and that's how easy it would be to stop it. Just simply say, okay, we're scrapping the idea. Okay, if you liberals don't agree with it, that's fine. But, what I fear and what I'm deadly afraid of is violence. Some of these protesters, not all of them well-intentioned, obviously are not going to move without being forced. If there is force, you never know what's going to happen. Thank you all. We'll be back tomorrow.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.